let's say that I have assigned my students an essay in which they need to use content from a specific website. Let's say that that specific website or web page is the KVCC Community College Library's current issues databases. I want the students to use anything from any of these sources here on this web page. So how am I going to share that with them? There are a variety of ways. In this instance, I want to share the link with them within the instructions. So let me go back here. Well, first I'm going to copy the URL since I want to share that with them. And I'm going to write a brief statement letting them know that I want them to visit the KVCC Library's Current Issues Databases website at, I need to paste the website here, the URL. And of course, I want that URL to be linked, so I highlight that. I click here, I paste the link in, I click done, and there we go. This approach to including a link for your students to click on is very common, but it can be very problematic for a variety of different students who face various types of circumstances. And I want to go over that a little bit briefly. One of the major problems is when you have a student who relies on a screen reader due to some form of visual impairment, then that screen reader is going to read this entire URL. And if you have several URLs throughout your course, every time their screen reader encounters a long URL such as this one, it will read every single letter. One letter at a time, one character at a time. And of course, there are other circumstances, like many students rely on their phones to access the content of their online courses. And again, some URLs can be much longer than this one, and that can really fill up the small screen space on their phone with URL rather than helpful content. So this video really is about what are the alternatives? What are the other best practices that could really help all of our students access the internet sources we want them to access through our online course? So let's go back and rethink this a little bit and ask ourselves, well, how could we rewrite this? What approach could we take? So I'm going to go back to my edit mode here. And I'm going to think a little bit differently about this. I'm going to get this URL out of here. And how do I want to write this? What do I want to write? So I'm going to rewrite my instructions. And I'm going to write, for your next essay, you will use any of the sources from the KVCC Library's Current Issues Databases webpage. Notice I didn't concern myself too much about where I was going to share the link. I wanted to just write naturally what I wanted my students to know. Now I can think about where do I want to link the text, because that's really the key to writing a helpful and accessible link, is to incorporate it, embed it within the text that you naturally write. So here is where I want to link. So let me reread this again. For your next essay, you will use any of the sources from the KVCC Library's Current Issues Databases web page. Now you could link all of this text, and that would be fine, or you could just link that text. It's good to try to keep it as simple as possible. The guidelines pretty much say limit it to a sentence, but only if you have to. you really want to keep it the smallest amount of text as you can. So I'm going to limit it to current issues databases. I'm going to go back and recopy my URL. And then I'm going to go back and I'm going to click on my links tool. There's the text I want to link to. I'm going to paste it right in here and then done. Now, when a student who uses a screen reader encounters this text or this link, this is what it's going to read exactly. For your next essay, you will use any of the sources from the KVC Library's Current Issues Databases webpage. Now, the screen reader will indicate that this text, it will tell them that this text here is linked. And so the student using the screen reader will be able to click on that. Additionally, students who rely on their phones, it's going to be very easy for them to see that link because it's blue, it's underlined, and that's what links look like in text. So you've really simplified and streamlined your instructions, and you've made it simpler for students to read. Let me share maybe another scenario. Let's say I'm teaching a history course, and I'm teaching my students about how enslavement during the Atlantic slave trade was different from enslavement as it existed in West Africa at that time, or other forms of enslavement throughout the world at different periods of time. And I've found a web resource I want my students to read and respond to a couple questions about those differences. So here is what I'm going to write. I start off with a couple questions, the prompts for the eventual discussion forum. What distinguished the Atlantic slave trade from previous forms of enslavement? How did these differences impact the ways in which the enslaved were treated? Read the article, New World Racism. I'm going to italicize that one. From the Lowcountry Digital Initiative, and then write a response to each of the above questions in this week's discussion forum. So here is where I want to include a link to my desired resource, internet resource. So I am going to grab that, and then I'm going to hit my link, and then I'm going to paste that in there, and then done. So now this will link directly to my source. Now notice, again, I wanted to model for you the idea that you're writing your instructions, no matter your discipline or topic. You write your instructions naturally. You don't really think too hard about where am I going to put the source or link the text. You do want to allude to the name if you can, somehow. You want it to be descriptive in some way, and let the student know what they're going to be opening, what's going to be opening in the next tab when they click on the link. So here you're telling them, in this case, you're giving an action verb. You're saying they're going to read. This is what you're going to do with this thing that you're going to open, and here's the name of the thing that you're going to open, and here's what you're going to do with it. Those are some approaches you can take when you think about how do I include or provide a link to an internet source outside of my course that I want my students to use. And really, it's not that complicated because obviously you're already writing directions, you're already writing a discussion of some sort, guiding your students through your content, and all you have to do is continue to do that, except instead of placing a long URL within all of that, you simply take that URL and you link it to specific text within your natural content.